Hey there, and welcome to the Totally Fierce Crochet channel. Welcome from the woods, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this super beautiful hooded scarf. Little Red Riding Hood that I designed especially for the Battle of the Stitches. It's super easy to make and fun to make, and it's made entirely with the rocking stitch, the selected stitch from our Battle of the Stitches for November 2024. You can make it in any color, and of course you can always adapt it to the size that you need. Of course you can wear it as a regular scarf just like this, or when it gets cold like it is today out here in the woods, use the hood and then you can leave it open or just close it around your neck and you will always look absolutely rocking. So here we go. Let's check out how to make this beautiful hooded scarf. So here's what I'll be using to make myself such an hooded scarf. And the yarn I'm going to use is from Hobby. It's called Amigo, and it's a 100% acrylic yarn, and it's very, I wouldn't say chunky, it's more bulky. And I'm going to be using this dark red because Christmas is coming and this color just screams Christmas to me. And I got myself 7 of those. Those are 175 meters and 191 yards, and I just hope that this will be enough to finish the hooded scarf with it, but we'll see. Then I'm going to use a 5.5 millimeter hook, and I'm going to be using one of my furls hooks. If you don't know them, they are absolutely awesome, and they have quite a nice grip in your hands, and of course they look just beautiful. Then of course some yarn needle to sew in the ends, of course some scissors. Then what would be helpful for such a project would be a measuring tape. Usually they have it like in centimeters and also in inches, so it's always good to have one. And I'll be using some stitch markers along the way because bigger projects, it definitely makes sense to have them to know where you are and to see if your stitch count is correct. And what I did was basically I took one of my existing scarves that I have at home that I feel has a great length and a great width. So I'll be using this as a base. The size of the scarf was 180 centimeters and the height or the width was 30 centimeters. So I will basically stick around those measurements when I start and then add the part for the hoodie or the hoodie part later on to it. And we are going to start with the lower part or the scarf part, so to say. And usually when you do a scarf, you start on the small side and then go upwards until you have the length of your scarf. For this project, I'll be starting on the wide side and then go up here. So I have the pattern always in the same direction for the scarf and the hood. And this is how we start. So we need 180 centimeters. So I'll be picking one of my yarn skeins. And of course I'm trying to pick like something from the center, because now to start with my long side I will do an I-cord, of course, and this will then also be like one of the most tricky parts, because how much yarn do I need to take away basically for the I-cord in the beginning. Usually you can always say when you have like your final length of a project, then multiply it at least by 3 or 4 to know how much yarn you have to take away for an I-cord. So I will just take 4 times 180 centimeters and then make a slip knot and start my I-cord. So I will take now the yarn. First I have to find the beginning. Here it is. And then I will take my measuring tape and I will just go along until I have my, oh great, this then stops at 150. So let's just go with 150. And here it was, and then we go back and take the next part from it. So now I have 3 meters, and then let's see, 450. My hook is rolling down the table. 450, and do it again. So we have 600 centimeters. And once more. 750. And I think I will just add something like 50 more just to be sure, because that would be bad if it wouldn't be enough. So here's the 50. And this is where I will place my slip knot to start my I-cord. Like this. And like that, I'm good to go. And now I will just basically start my I-cord until I reach those 180 centimeters, and I will also add a stitch marker for every 20th stitch, just so I know how many stitches I have. And the I-cord, you have probably seen it in my other videos, it goes very easily. By the way, if you want to make this project yourself and you don't like to do it with the I-cord, of course you can always just chain an even number of stitches like I showed it to you in the tutorial for the rocking stitch, and then just work in the back loops, for example, and continue with the rocking stitch. I do the I-cord, so in the end I will have an uneven number, but now it's more important to get to the length, and this is why I do the I-cord. So you take your end yarn and wrap it around your hook from the front, then take the yarn that goes to your yarn ball and wrap it around from the back, and then pull that last loop through the 2 loops on your hook, and we continue this until I reach the length of my hooded scarf, and this is where I'll meet you back. And once I have my 20th stitch, I will take a stitch marker and just mark it so I know that here I had the first 20, and then I can go on. So here we go. My big I-cord chain is basically done, and I now have about 190 centimeters, but that is also absolutely fine with me. And I do have quite a lot of end yarn here, so measuring it out 4 times was absolutely enough, because this was the rest of it. I will probably keep it somewhere just in case. And this is why I now cut it off. And here would be like also my 20th stitch after this one here. So I will take my hook off and just take one of them back, because I need an uneven number. So here I have then 19, and from there I can basically start my rocking stitch. So I'm going to turn my work, and here's my very first stitch. So I'm going to put the hook in, then yarn over, and before I then take the yarn over, I will also directly incorporate my yarn end by pulling it over my hook and pulling the yarn through, and then I go into the next stitch right here, yarn over, pull it through, and as you might remember from the stitch tutorial from 2 weeks ago, we always start with 3 loops on your hook, and we also end the round with 3 loops on the hook. So here's already my first stitch. So you yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops, and then chain 1 to close it, and we make this chain 1 element a bit more loose, and then we continue by going back into our last stitch that we have and take the next loop up, and then we go into the next stitch, which is right here. Now we have 3, and then we continue with the next I-cord stitch right here until we have 4, and then we yarn over and pull through all 4 of the loops and close it with a slip stitch. So I basically continue all along and still also keeping my end yarn, so I don't have to sew it in later. And this I will do all along until I have my height of 30 centimeters. So this will now probably take me a while to do it, and I'll meet you back once I have it, before I can then start making the hood part and then finishing everything off. And I hope to see you when I'm back here. See you. Bye. So I'm basically done with the scarf part of my hooded shawl. And here's a closer look at the beautiful pattern with our rocking stitch. And I'm absolutely obsessed with it. It has a beautiful drape throughout. And I actually think it was a good idea to start on the wide side, because it didn't feel that long to get to a height like this. It's still, I think it's 25, and initially I wanted to make 30, but I think this is now enough, especially when there's also going to be the hood. And what I'm going to do next is, because I lost my last stitch right here, but by now I could do the stitch with closed eyes basically. I will turn once more and just make a round of single crochets all along so that I have a beautiful border, absolutely straight like the beginning. And once I have that, we can take care of the hood. So here we go. I just go in every stitch and just make a single crochet in there to flatten everything out and get a straight border. And I'll meet you once I have it to finish the scarf part. And the last one. And yarn over again. And now we can cut the yarn and pull it through. And now I'm just going to take my yarn needle and weave that end yarn in, just going back where I came from for a few stitches. And again, also make sure to really go through some of those yarn strands, because that will always result in a much safer way to get the yarn in. And then I'm going just backwards a few stitches just to make sure everything is nice and secure. And that should be it. Cut the yarn. And like that, the scarf part is complete. So if you just want to make yourself a pretty scarf with this rocking stitch, here you go. But of course, a regular scarf would definitely not be enough for my participation in the Battle of the Stitches. So now comes the hood part, and for that I'm going to put my scarf together on two ends. As you can see, I still have my stitch markers in, which is good because now we can then determine where to put the hood. And of course I will place the hood in the center of my piece, and I will just lay the scarf over each other so I know where I am. And again, I also used one of my existing hoodies to see how big the hood part will be, and I measured 34 centimeters on one side and then 34 on the back side, basically, because for the hood you have something left from your face and something right from your face. So it will be funnily around here where I had my stitch markers, and this is like 33 and 40, but I think this should be quite the right part or the right space to put it. So I will just put out my other ones because we don't need them anymore. And now I will just go along because we are going to work into the back loop of our round of single crochets that we did in the previous step. And I will just go along to see where I am up there. So this is here, and the other one goes all the way up and is around here. And then we can take all of the lower ones out. We won't need them anymore, and we are good to start with adding the hood. So basically this will be then the piece that will be around the neck. And the way I'm going to do this is, of course, grabbing the yarn and making a slip knot first. And then I will just go into the back loop right here, and first I'm going to just attach my yarn like this. And as you can remember, the beginning and the end of our rounds are always like 3 loops on the hook. So I'm going to go into the next stitch, grab the yarn. Now I have the 3 loops on my hook, and I will just pull them through. So this here is now my very first cluster element that we had. And then I continue like we had it before. I go back into the same stitch, then I go into the next one, grab the yarn, pull it through, and into the one after that, grab the yarn, pull it through. So now I have my 4 again. And like that, I can just continue my pattern like I had it before. So the rocking stitch all the way, except for this little round of single crochets. And I will do this right until I reach the other stitch marker, and then I will end it in a way that I will have just 3 loops to crochet together and then basically turn, and I will meet you once I'm there. There's only a few of our rocking stitch clusters left to do. So now I only have 2 left, which is why I'm going to just finish it up here for the round, and I will just go through 2 stitches instead of 3. Yes, I'm going to just finish it here, and then after I have the 3 loops on my hook, I'm just going to pull that through, and again chain 1. I'm going to place this 1 stitch later, and then like we did it before, we turn our work and continue on the smaller size now, because we're at the hood, with our pattern exactly the same way like we had it. So the first one is always 3 loops on the hook, and then we continue with 4, and we basically do this for as long as we need to have it to close our hood on top, and make sure to not go all the way. You can always try it on yourself to see how high it goes, and once it's close to passing the rounding of your head, you just stop and wait for me to get to the same point, because then we will do a decrease to make it a little bit more rounded. Otherwise, you would have like a completely edgy end of your hood. And I will meet you there. And after that, it's just not that much to finish it off, because we are basically going to just put both parts in the end together like this and make a knot, and we're done. But until then, I'm just working on my hood, and I'll see you. So I made quite some progress on the hood already. It's not exactly 21 centimeters. I left it a little bit shorter. I think it's around 19 or almost 20, but I think it will stretch out a little bit, of course. So I'm keeping it a little bit shorter. And now actually comes a bit of a tricky part here with the rounding, because I want to have my hood to have a rounded corner. If you prefer a hood with a sharp corner, you just continue until you have the height of your hood. But I'm going to try to make a rounded corner, and for that I'm going to do and for that I will have to do decreases. Now I have no idea how to decrease the stitch, but I'm trying my best. So if you later on want to make a project with the rocking stitch and there are decreases, hopefully by the end of this tutorial we all know how to do them. And I will start my first decrease here on the outer side of the hood, not on the inside, of course. And I will make one decrease, then one regular round, then another decrease at the same spot, another full round, and then I will make double decreases on each side to then flatten out on top. Hopefully, that's the strategy, the theory. We are going to see how this one works out. And I'm going to place stitch markers along the way where I place my decreases, so later on you then also know where I placed them and how I made them, and of course how many. And for that I am just going to lay everything over each other and go to the side of my hood, and I will just place a stitch marker in, and I'm good to go with the next round. And once I reach the stitch marker, then I'm going to be back and show you how to do the decreases. So I reached the stitch marker, and now we are doing our first decrease. And first off, we start as if we would do a regular rocking stitch shell or segment like this, and then we yarn over, and then we will go just through 3 of the loops, and then we continue as if we would have finished it. So we go into the next stitch and go into the one after that and the next one, and then we yarn over again. Now we basically have 2 shells unfinished, this one and this one. And now I'm going to yarn over again, and I'm going to pull through all 3 and then chain to close this double shell, and like that we decreased it. And once we come back, then also the bigger holes here will hopefully be gone, and As I mentioned before, I'm just continuing and I will place stitch markers. Maybe I jump in the middle somewhere to show you where I am. Otherwise, I'll meet you once I made my very last decrease. So, see you then. So here I am with a little sneak peek and a little snoring dog next to me again. Every time I press record, then the snoring starts. But anyway, here's the little sneak peek of my rounding for the hood. I think it looks quite promising already. I have now a round with a triple decrease basically, and I might probably need another one after that, but we will see. Maybe then we can also just sew everything together and it will go somewhere like this. But overall, I think this part here is quite nice with the rounding. So we'll see. I will see you back when I'm about to close this last panel here, and then our hooded scarf is complete. See you. So I think this is exactly where I will leave it. I made another round. The height of my hood is around 30, and at first I calculated with 31, so that's about fine. Just always think about the stretch of the fabric, so when you later on have it on your head, it will stretch out a little bit. So just keep that in mind to not make it too big, because otherwise it might look a bit weird. But in general, a hooded scarf is more like urban fashion and it can be a bit oversized. That's no problem at all. But I think for now, this hood can now be sewn together. There's not much left. And I will also do it in a way that I can then later on stop the sewing right here and then take the rest of this and just put it together somehow. We'll see. And now I am just going to cut the yarn. Make sure to leave a longer yarn end. And we can then just pull the yarn through. Then of course we are going to place both endings over each other. And then I take my yarn needle where is it? Right here. And then I'm going to basically try to find the right side of the stitch, and then I will start by putting the yarn through from behind and then back to the front like this. And then going from the front always to the back, stitch by stitch. And then at some point you can then just drag on the yarn. Have I been in this stitch? Yes. And now, as I mentioned before, what I will do is to go sideways into each stitch. And I will not pull the yarn all the way through. Where are we? We are here. And once we are back, I am now going to pull on it, and I will also go in that last loop, and hopefully like that we can then close it in a way that I keep the rounded shape, and I think it worked. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going through some of the stitches, because I feel like here's one bigger hole. And I am just trying to close that a little bit more. And I know it gets a bit hard to see with like this big amount of stitch markers, but I think this already did the trick. So I can then make a knot, and then I will just go along, because now the only thing we have to do is to hide that piece of end yarn somewhere, and I'm just going along my stitch markers. Cut it. And the hood is done. And here we have the rounded shape. I'm surprised myself, but sometimes things just work. And now we can take off all those stitch markers. And then you can also decide which side you want to use, but I think the other side was quite nice already. And then of course just flatten the fabric out a little bit, and the hood is done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you like this hooded scarf as much as I do, and I hope you're going to make one yourself for this season. It's really a super cool piece to have, and I hope to see you back again next time. Remember, the full tutorial for my fingerless mittens matching to the hooded scarf is coming on Saturday, so watch out for it. And until then, happy crocheting. Bye.